And I'd like to share some thoughts on the spiraling levels of disharmony, civil unrest, and rebellions that we see occurring around the world with growing frequency. Because this has an impact on all of us, whether we live in these places or not. So let us start by examining some of the root causes of what we are seeing, and then discuss how best we can all participate in paving the way for sustainable solutions. Every problem has a solution. And remember, problems come to us to teach us how to solve them. That's how life works. So how we respond to these challenges is extremely important. And that's where I'd like to focus our today's discussion on. Now, in the recent weeks, I have seen so many disturbing social media forwards and news clips on civil unrest and chaos in so many parts of Europe, the UK being one of the latest ones. To add to that, we see civil unrest in Africa, Asia, and the Americas. It's a global phenomenon. Now, how are most of us reacting to the live news we witness daily on these events? What are our reactions? Some typical reactions include anger and disseminating equally harsh responses through our social media forwards, or judgment and assignment of blame, or heated debates and arguments, or helplessness, fear, empathy, and some of us even think of pursuit of constructive solutions. So there's lots more to this list of reactions. Now, when faced with problems of this nature, directly or indirectly, we have to ask ourselves, what am I supposed to learn from these situations? And secondly, how can I be helpful in seeking solutions? So instead of getting angry and adding fuel to the fires when we don't like what is happening, these are questions we do want to ask. What am I supposed to learn? And how can I be helpful? Now, we don't throw stones or get angry or upset at college or university when we attend a class whose topic we don't enjoy, or the knowledge we don't find interesting. So the same principles apply here to the school of life. Now let us look under the carpet for a few moments. Let us examine some of the root causes of the disharmony and civil unrest that are breaking down pluralism. There's lots of them, but I'm just going to pick a few of the obvious ones. The first one is economic disenfranchisement and poverty. Now, this is a widespread problem across the globe. Post-COVID, many economic factors changed. Prices have risen sharply, but wages have not. Even the most developed nations are suffering from this economic squeeze. People are actually getting poorer each year, despite all the hours of work that they put in, and some have to take on second and third jobs. So life is getting a lot more difficult, and this is a huge source of anger and frustration. Second one is the erosion and loss of quality of life. And in the UK, for example, many of the protesters are not criminals and thugs as portrayed. They are genuinely affected people who have seen their quality of life drop from generation to generation for a variety of reasons. So they are exasperated. And when we are exasperated, we need somebody to blame or cry out to, hence their behavior. Third is scarcity of resources. With the post-COVID effects and a world of today that remains immersed in endless wars, we're seeing a lot of supply chain issues, disruptions, and an overall scarcity of resources. In many cases, it is also because such resources are overpriced and out of reach for the common citizen. Fourth, perceived racism. Now, I use the word perceived because what appears as racist behavior may often stem from factors unrelated to race and culture. Like, for example, poverty and erosion of quality of life. So racist demonstrations may not necessarily have their roots of racism. We need to be cognizant of that. And as I said, exasperated people need someone to blame. And often that may include a specific race or group of people, and that's what's transpiring before our eyes. The fifth, and a really important one, is an appalling governance failure by leadership in the developed and most developed nations for a host of reasons, such as lack of capability or intellectual capacity to govern, and we are seeing that as well, corruption, squandering of national wealth on arms, wars, theft, or lavish displays, while citizens suffer poverty, lack of care, and infrastructure degradation. This is also a big source of anger. Gross manipulation of democracy at record levels like we have never seen before. When the leadership of any group of people becomes unqualified to govern, and we see this in growing numbers of countries today, rebellions and riots follow. While civil unrest may have multiple roots, many of them can be corrected through fair and qualified governance. Number 6, information warfare, where fake news is spread in targeted ways to divide people and anger the masses and drive them to revolt against the innocent or those that are being targeted, and worse still, destabilize nations. These can be the acts of warmongers, enemy nations, and saboteurs, for example. And unless we have our eyes open and do not believe everything we see or hear, we too can easily fall prey to this. 7, generational revolts, where the youths from the next generation are demanding change. They refuse to accept the ways of the older generations. And this can sometimes be a very healthy thing in the long run if it forces change for the better. My dear friends, there's an endless list of such root causes, and I've just picked a few obvious ones, and you can add your own thoughts to this list. Now, having said all this, I have some news for you. We are all not totally innocent parties here. We are not totally innocent parties here. Actually, we are all unknowingly contributing towards the disharmony and breakdown of pluralism every day. How, you may ask? Let's think of a pyramid. You've all seen a pyramid. It is small at the apex, at the top, and as we go downwards, it expands and grows to its maximum size at its base. Now let us explore this pyramid from the top to the bottom. Recently, I received a flood of social media forwards on the wedding of the son of an Indian tycoon who spent $600 million on the wedding. Everyone was talking about it with disbelief and scorn. Endless negative comments were flowing, even made by people who one would consider rational. Basically, everybody complained. How can you do this when there are so many suffering people in the world? This is absolutely shameful and disgusting. Okay, fair reaction, some may say. Then, around the same time, I also received many forwards of another Indian tycoon who donated a lot of his health for the betterment of the aged in India. And this forward was just about always accompanied with a direct judgment between these two tycoons, the good guy and the bad guy. One was frowned upon while the other revered. Now I would ask a simple question. Who are we to judge them? Who are we to judge them? The universe gave one of them lots of money, and for all we know, he may potentially be smarter than the rest of us. Who knows? He chose to spend his money, in inverted commas, not yours or mine, in pursuit of his dreams or wishes, which we all perceived as disgusting and extravagant. Why did the universe not give any of us that amount of money if we were so smart and qualified to judge this man? Fair question. If we are that brilliant, we should have gotten that money, but we didn't. My dear friends, each one of us receives our provision from the universe. And each one of us chooses how to best spend it. It's an individual matter. Now, I cannot tell you whether your spending choices make you a good person or a bad person. You would simply tell me to mind my own business, and you would be right to do so. So why are we doing this to others without a second thought? We are acting as if it is our right to do so. Now let us consider these two tycoons as being at the top of the pyramid, where the numbers of dollars they deal with is orders of magnitude larger than the rest of us. So they are at the top of the pyramid. Now let us go halfway down the pyramid to the middle class, which has lots more people. Let us imagine that with us in our audience today, we have one of you beautiful ladies that belongs in this class, the middle class. And let us say you are a senior executive that earns $10,000 a month. You have worked very hard to get to this position in your life. Now let us say that you are a lady that really enjoys fancy handbags because they bring you joy. So on one of your landmark achievements, on the day when you were finally promoted to Chief Executive Officer, you decided, with a big pay raise, you decided to celebrate by treating yourself to a Louis Vuitton bag that costs $2,500. So you go ahead and buy this handbag. And you thoroughly enjoy this bag every time you see it because it reminds you of your landmark achievement. Now below you, lower down in the pyramid, is a man that earns $100 a month. And your Louis Vuitton bag is equal to over 2 years of his salary. He looks up at you with absolute scorn and disgust for being so reckless with your money. He has no idea about your life or what it took for you to reach where you are. But now to this man who is struggling to survive, he may look at you and your taste in handbags exactly how you view the tycoon that spent $600 million on his son's wedding. You have no idea of his own inner life, no clue, but you look up and you pass judgment. And below you there are those that are passing judgments on you. Maybe it was his dream to wed his son in that lavish way. We don't know. Just like it was your dream to buy your Louis Vuitton bag. Maybe he loves the attention. Who knows? The only difference between you and this tycoon is numbers. Simply numbers. You judged this tycoon harshly without pausing to look at yourself. The universe gave you abundance that puts you in the middle of the pyramid. However, your choices are going to appear disgusting to the vast majority below you who are struggling to survive at the bottom of the pyramid. This, my dear friends, is what I call the pyramid of judgment. It is highly, highly toxic. Today, when we view the people who are protesting their plight lower down in the pyramid, we hear many branding them as racists or accusing them of not wanting to work or whatever, or wanting freebies. But the truth may be that many of them are lower down in the pyramid through no fault of their own. They are enraged each time they look up the pyramid at those more privileged by whatever virtue or reason. Hence, they target such people or races or groups of people, which can easily include people like us, possibly. And we, in turn, target the people above us in the pyramid, and this is where we all go wrong, from top to bottom and bottom to top. We have to stop judging those better off than us And we have to start treating those less fortunate than us with a lot more empathy than we do now. We need to contribute to their betterment in whatever way we can. Even a simple prayer for their well-being can go a long ways. It's a great start. But we become aware with empathy of their plight. So my dear friends, the next time you have the urge to judge and criticize someone for their choices and shoot out 100 forwards of social media posts, remember the pyramid. There are millions below you that are judging you the same way. Sadly today, this pyramid of judgment is spiraling with negativity wherever we look. It is terribly unhealthy and represents an important root cause of the conflicts we are witnessing all around us. In our individual lives and our family lives, in our societies and nations, we will be able to create a lot of new mental capacity when this judgmentalism recedes, which is currently being wasted in gossip and passing of judgments. We can use this energy to better our own lives and reach out to those less fortunate than us. This brings us to the solutions part. How can we correct the plight of humanity today when we are seeing all this unrest, breakdown of harmony, breakdown of pluralism? How can we be part of the solution? So let us start by trying to use the pyramid differently. Our parental generations allowed the pyramid to evolve and grow, and our current generation has added rocket fuel to it. Now, we can reverse the way we work with this pyramid by turning it positive instead of negative. How, you may ask? Here are some options. Number one, stop passing and spreading negative judgments. This is an obvious one, slam dunk. Number two, look above us in the pyramid and bless those that may appear to have greater fortune than us, remembering that their fortunes also come with their own problems that we do not see. So let us bless them, because like us, they need it too. Number three, look below us and spread empathy and awareness of the plight of fellow beings that are suffering below us, and in their suffering, spread empathy and awareness. Let us talk about them with empathy and not blame them or scorn them, and reach out to help them where we can. Number four, pray for their well-being. And you can add to this list. There's lots that needs to be added. So my dear friends, when this pyramid turns positive, it can be equally powerful. So let us build further in this positive direction. Here are some solutions and strategies for us to consider. Number one, the first one is communication, with a specific focus on listening to and hearing others. Listening to and hearing others. The key words are listening and hearing. We can all listen, but many of us cannot hear because we are so full of our own little noisy spheres which we can't even stop talking about. So we listen, but not hear. By listening and hearing, we can understand the plight of others and thus be of help. I watched a video on YouTube yesterday of one of the imams or leaders at the Liverpool Mosque in the UK, which gave me a lot of hope that change is absolutely possible. After a couple of other UK mosques had been damaged by the rioters, he was informed that his mosque was to be targeted next. So what did he do? He had volunteers cook lots of food in the mosque kitchen, and he waited calmly as the rioters grew in number and released their anger through screaming, protests, etc. He just waited. There wasn't a right time to step out. Then he found an opportune moment to put the food out for the protesters. He said for many of them, He was actually invisible. They just kept screaming past him. You can look up this story on YouTube. So they just kept screaming past him. Then, as things calmed a bit, some of the protesters began to accept the food. And what followed was an amazing dialogue, he tells us, a very constructive one. He spoke one-on-one with many of the protesters, as did his colleagues, as they shared a meal. And he asked them, "Why are you protesting against us? We genuinely want to know what we have done. How have we offended you? And if we have, what can we do to change that?" So, why are you protesting against us? How have we offended you? And what can we do to change that? And he said most of the protesters he spoke to paused after hearing his questions. And they didn't really know why they were protesting against the mosque and its community. They didn't know. They had no answer. Furthermore, they had been fed fake news, which was quickly debunked the next day. But they went on a misguided rampage of destruction, fueled constantly by the social media posts of a small, very small number of misguided politicians whose intent appeared to be malicious, to cause damage to what is a beautiful and respectable nation. By the end, the mosque leader said many new friendships were created with the very people that came to tear down the place. Contacts were exchanged, and a new atmosphere was created through everyone's humanity being touched in a positive way, one-on-one, as equals. Now, this is how the pyramid can be made to turn positive, my dear friends. These protesters wanted to be heard. That's the key. And this leader and his colleagues listened to and heard them. When people are heard, they have no reason to drive home their point with violence and destruction. It all melts away because once they have been heard, they find peace. So what is our takeaway from this solution of communication today? It is to listen to and to hear the plight of others and show them empathy without telling them what to do. Because we really cannot understand what it is like being in their shoes. So listening and hearing are our key solutions. There are lots of people out there crying out to be heard. Even in our ordinary daily lives and surroundings and workplaces. Lend them an empathetic ear. It creates long-lasting peace, drop by drop. If we see someone who's drawn themselves into a shell, but you know they are upset, they are hurting, reach out to them. Lend them an empathetic ear. You don't have to wait for riots and conflicts. This occurs all around us, and this is a clear solution for us to work with. The second possible solution after communication is to be discerning of what we allow into our consciousness. Now, I have spoken about this in previous webinars as well, because today our media and social media is wrought with false news and lies, divisive comments on religions, cultures, and traditions, and even history itself, images of glamorous lives of people that breed envy and dissatisfaction, most of which are purely an act, they are not even real, designed to spur consumerism and make more money. Our social media is filled with information that spreads anger and fear and pure mass manipulation by the unscrupulous. When we believe such negative inputs, we allow their dark energies into our consciousness, making us all live in darkness. And sadly, that's where billions of us are today. My dear friends, I grew up learning that seeing was believing, that what was in print was the honest truth. All that, sadly, is out of the window now. And each one of us has to be highly discerning about the information, thoughts, and energies we allow into our consciousness. Now, thinking of the pyramid, we can use our social media to spread information on peace, empathy, harmony, and positivity. Spread understanding when you see situations like this rather than criticize. With creation of forums for listening, hearing, and constructive dialogue as well. All this brings peace. The next one is the power of forgiveness. Number 3, power of forgiveness. And this is also a critical part of reversing the pyramid from negative to positive. Forgiveness is a very powerful force that frees us of deeply rooted negative energies. It also frees others from their shackles. We can all start by cleaning our own slates, by thinking of all those that have hurt us, and by forgiving them. This way we will empty the heavy suitcases we have been burdened with throughout our journeys. When we're carrying hurt, it's like climbing up a staircase with 250-kilo suitcases. We tire, we fatigue. When we forgive, we empty them. Next, then we can reach out and seek the forgiveness of those we may have hurt. And if it's not directly feasible, we can pray for their forgiveness. With forgiveness, we will find freedom, and our jars will be refilled with positivity. Remember, you cannot pour out of an empty jar or bottle. So to reverse this pyramid, we must have jars filled with freedom and positivity, from which we can pour and spread peace and harmony. Our social media posts and dialogues can also center around the importance of forgiveness, for spreading forgiveness is a powerful path to peace and resolution. Last year we did a full webinar on forgiveness. Please do view the video, as there are some very interesting examples and anecdotes in it. It's on our YouTube channel. And finally today, I would like to touch on a very important power each one of us possesses to create change, which is the power of the eternal pool. For those who are not familiar with the eternal pool, let me give you a very quick background. So, this is a chapter I wrote in my book called Parables from the Origin, my second book. And it's about a young boy, little boy and little girl, who are walking in a forest with the great teacher. And this is before humanity has become what it is. They're the only two human beings walking in this forest with their great teacher. So that makes 3 of them. And during the daytime, the great teacher teaches them about the laws of the forest, of nature, how things work. And in the nighttime, he teaches them the laws of spirituality and seeking to go to higher levels. And then one day, as they're walking, they come to this place where there are 7 tall trees whose roots go into the core of the earth and whose trunks end up in the sky. And they are in a circle. And in the middle of the circle is a fountain, which is flowing, crystal clear water flowing. And Sarah, the young girl, immediately runs to pick up and get a drink of water because she is thirsty. And when she scoops up the water, she finds it's not water. And she is very angry and dismayed. And she looks at the teacher and says, this fountain is false. It looks like water, but it doesn't quench my thirst. It is not water. And the teacher said, today it is time to learn a very important lesson. Because after today, this forest will be filled with millions of people like you. In fact, there will be no forest left. But this eternal pool will always be with you. Now look at this pool. What do you see? Look at the way it flows. So both of them said, yes, it comes from the earth and it flows outwards. And he said, that is the law that you must always maintain. This eternal pool must always flow. When you receive something with one hand, let some of it go with the other, and you remain within the flow of the eternal pool. The eternal pool will bring you resources, abundance, wealth, knowledge. Everything that you need to thrive in this material world will come to you from the eternal pool. But it must flow. And if ever in your life you reach a point where nothing works and everything goes wrong, ask yourself, are both my hands open? Or am I receiving with one and the second being closed? And once you have your answer, you can correct your situation. And I've actually received feedback from people when I've done this lecture, one in particular, who then sent me an email saying, my life was a mess, nothing was working. And he said, when I heard those words, I went home and I reflected and I realized that my second hand was closed. And he said, the minute I opened it and began to give, and giving can even be through service, through a prayer, through a smile, through resources. But he said, the minute I began to become a giver, my fortunes changed. So this is the eternal pool. Now, the eternal pool today flows through each of us and bringing us everything we need to thrive in this world. And as I said earlier, such as resources and abundance. We have a very good video on wealth and abundance which touches on this, and that's also on our YouTube channel. Please do visit it. The eternal pool also brings the flow and carries the flow of advice, guidance, service. Praying for others. When you pray for others, it flows back to you. Forgiveness. When we forgive others, it also flows back to us. Healing. When we seek to heal others, it also flows back to us because we are in the circle of the eternal pool. Sharing hope also flows back to us and more. So even offering comfort through a simple smile and acknowledgement puts us in the circle of happiness. So this is a power we all possess. And so with the eternal pool, we can foster a never-ending flow between us and our fellow beings as a unity or oneness. What we put out and give flows back to us with ever-growing strength. And this is how the pyramid gets reversed from the negative to the positive. Put out into the eternal pool and let it flow through others and back to us. And what we put out is good, positive, creative, helpful, empathetic. It also flows back to us, and this eternal pool can reverse the pyramid because its laws are completely relevant to each and every being and every creature on this planet. So this was the insight I wanted to share with you today, and it offers us some concrete ideas on things that we can start working with.